Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the third episode of the Putting the Human into Technology podcast for 2025. And I think this is possibly about episode 9 of season 3, where we've had a sort of not-for-profit focus. And today I'm joined by a special guest, Laura Dawson. Laura is the founder of, I was going to say Feedly. It's not Feedly, it's Leaderly.
Yes.
And it's not Calendly or any of those others either. But it sounds like a a similar kind of title. But Leaderly, um, Laura's sort of background is in IT, and you may remember tail end of last year we had Tree Hall on, who was the CEO of Charity IT Leaders. Well, up until very recently, Laura was the chairman of that organisation. Lots and lots of experience in not for profits, and I'm sure her insights are going to be very good. But Laura, thank you for joining me, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Giffen. Thank you for inviting me. Really happy
Uh,
to
you,
be here.
you're welcome. So we'll dive straight. Trip over my words. We'll dive straight into it, Laura. Right. So the first question I'm going to ask is basically just tell us a little bit about yourself, the organisation you work for, and a little bit about your background, please.
Yeah, lovely. Sure. Well, I'll start with my background because that's probably a little bit more interesting than Leaderly. And everybody's probably wondering what on earth is Leaderly. It's not even a word, but I'll come back to that. So I have worked in the not-for-profit sector pretty much all my life. I started in the Ministry of Defence, which was really interesting. They gave me a very good grounding and training in how to make the best use of technology in an organisation. It was a really interesting place to work. But then subsequently, I have been the Chief Information Officer for the London School of Economics, Save the Children UK, RSPB, and the British Council, all of which add up to children, animals, world peace, and education. So I think I've kind of ticked off all the kind of key things that you need to tick off in terms of who you've worked for. I mean, that's kind of my background. I've been very much a kind of systems and data type stream in terms of my career, how I've ended up
Yeah.
where I am. So less so on the kind of hard infrastructure side of things and much more on the kind of business systems and data and analysis side of things. Although you do have to have that infrastructure piece in your toolkit when you become a chief information officer.
Mm.
But what I am now is I run my own consultancy company, Leaderly. I chose the name because I didn't want to be too kind of like, I'm a big leader. I'm a bit leaderly. So so there's a little bit of humility in there. But the idea is that we work with not-for-profits predominantly and in helping either the top of the shop or the chief information officer or head director of IT with how do they make the best use out of the money that they're spending on technology. And I either work on my own or I work with some very trusted partners that I've known for a very long time. And we do things like strategy or operating models or investment. So it's a number of different things that we will help people to really kind of coalesce on and deliver. And one of the fun things I do is I also get involved in running a business simulations, so Apollo 13 and the Phoenix Project, which are really good fun. I get to be the astronaut, and I won't say how many times I've been killed, but it's more than one.
Tell me a little bit more about that. I don't actually know too much about that, so just elaborate on that last
Oh,
bit for me.
so Apollo 13. Well, I'll focus on Apollo 13. You've seen the film,
Yeah, I've
and
seen the film. Yeah, I know the
you know the
story.
you know the story. And if you see the film, it's actually even just watching the film with the lens of business is really interesting because there are lots of things that they did in that film, and in the actual kind of emergency that are about how organizations work. So it's really interesting. And what we do, and I work with another partner, is there's a business game done by Gaming Works called Apollo 13, and you have you run as though you're trying to get the astronauts back from space, and it's basically about service management.
Right.
And if you look at the film with that service management mindset, you will see that about how you communicate. The astronauts can only communicate with certain people. Those people then have to make sure everybody else understands what's going on. They have to make sure that they've got the right hardware in place, all of those kinds of things. Communications and key. So there's lots and lots of lessons learned in running it. But because you are running a business simulation, it also has less jeopardy.
Right.
And allows people to kind of play act, but without play acting, if you know what I mean. They're not pretending to be something else, but they're learning how to do stuff, and it's really, really, really good fun. Yes, we've done it a few times. Done it with Charity IT leaders as well, which is quite.
It does sound like a lot of fun, actually. It does sound like a lot of fun. We've actually had a comment come in from LinkedIn. I don't have the person's name, so apologies, but it says, I loved the Apollo 13 simulation. It was a fantastic day and such a powerful environment to learn while having fun as well, which is the best way to learn, in my humble opinion. I don't know who said that. I think it might have been Tree, actually. It might have been Tree Hall. It's just come through on my phone.
I'm not going to say whether or not that was one of the ones where I died, but
Fab. Awesome. All right, thanks, Laura. That's interesting. I'm intrigued. If I ever get a chance to do that, I think I'd like to have a go at that as well. So that's brilliant. So very background, lots of not-for-profits. I guess Ministry of Defence is probably perhaps a little bit different to maybe Save the Children and everything in between. Given just they're not necessarily revenue generating, or they're definitely not driven for profit, and that's probably what they have in common, I guess, in those circles. So that's really interesting. So in your role as leader, and you're not for profit focused again, can you perhaps share? You mentioned a few things in there, like operating models and strategy, and you also said, you need infrastructure in your toolkit. Can you share how perhaps technology and data have transformed either? Perhaps not Leaderly is the right example. Perhaps it's one of your clients, and how it's transformed their approach to achieving their mission. Have you got any sort of like concrete examples that you can share, or examples that you can share without if you're not allowed to name names, if that makes sense?
Oh, I'm actually going to go. I'm going to name names. I'm going to go with the British Council because that's a fantastic organisation. It's a global organisation. It's interesting you mentioned MOD and Save the Children. The two I would bookend is British Council and MOD,
right?
Because one is about hard power and the other one's about soft power. Right. So they're both needed, both absolutely essential organisations. But I'm going to take you back in time. So imagine the screen is going, woo, we're going back in time to the 80s, which is not really that long ago. And part of my remit when I was at British Council, and this was only in 2013 to 2017, was to look after their information records, so the records management side of things. And we were looking through some of the records. We did a lot of storytelling from the records that we had, things that had gone on in the past. And there was one file that we opened, and there was a letter on it, and the letter said, "We're moving offices. We've packed everything up onto the boats. We'll see you in 3 months." And that was a letter. That letter took 6 weeks to get from where it was coming from, and I can't remember which country it was, but it was coming from overseas, back to the British Council so that they could then have it for their records. And that was in the 80s. Now, I started working in the 80s, so I don't think that's that long ago. And if you think about what's changed since then, we now have pretty much unlimited communication across the world. I mean, there are places where we don't, but pretty much unlimited connectivity. And you wouldn't have that situation where you didn't hear from a part of your organization for 3 months because they were moving offices. And that has completely transformed connectivity in the aid world, connectivity and communication in soft power and engagement with other countries and all of those kind of things. And all of that, when done well, and I'm going to talk about it later when we talk about challenges, but when done well, that ability to communicate with the whole world is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. There are risks. So when I was at Save the Children, one country, their connectivity was powered by a rather flaky generator that was located on the beach.
Okay.
Why it was on the beach, I don't know, but it was on the beach. One of those things. So it's great to have comms, but without power, you have problems. So sometimes that snail mail is going to be, the only way of communicating. So I think, we just need to kind of recognize that there are risks, but it's incredible.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I'll pause there, and because I got another one.
Carry on, because I'm intrigued by your answer. I thought you'd finish, so apologies for cutting you.
I've got another one, and the other one that I think that's quite an old one, but communication. I don't think we sometimes talk about the new stuff all the time. we don't always talk about the fact that we've got this unlimited connectivity, pretty much unlimited computing power, and pretty much unlimited data. And those three together are phenomenally powerful for any organization if they can put it all together in the right way. And we can talk about AI, we can do that. I'm sure other respondents have talked about AI.
Yeah.
I'm really not going to touch on it too much, because I think those things are actually more magical, that unlimited communication, that unlimited compute power, that unlimited data. The second example I wanted to give was the unlimited compute power, so cloud, and in particular software as a service. So I'm going to, again, back in time, but not that far this time. 2020, start of 2020.
Pandemic.
Lockdown. Yeah. I was at the LSE. To be fair, we were disaster planning for the pandemic at the beginning of January.
Right.
So, and the main reason for that is we had large numbers of overseas students, and particularly China. So, we were aware that there were issues, we were aware of things were going on. We needed to do things. But we were the first UK university to go fully online during the pandemic. So we were able to deliver our lectures online. We were able to engage with our students online. I can't claim credit for it because it was another part of the organization, but we had Salesforce. And we were able to implement a track and trace system within about 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And it worked. And I was a volunteer. So we had people who volunteered their time to man the phones and run this tracking system so that we could, particularly our students who were in halls of residence, we could engage with them, we could communicate with them, we could look after them, we could make sure that services were in place for them, all of those kinds of things. And that could not have happened without software as a service. So Salesforce is the example, and apologies for naming a brand,
no,
but
it's
it's
okay.
the one that we had. The fact that we had Microsoft Office and we had Teams, and of course we had all that thing about, oh, we're going to use Teams, we're going to use Zoom. We used them both. We used them both well. Probably the one thing that I think we should be most proud of is we didn't get into an argument about it. We just went, right, that's what we're going to do it. And I know so many organizations that kind of got on their high horses about which one is it going to be. And
okay. Yeah, I guess around the Teams and Zoom thing, I do recall that there was a security issue with Zoom, that there's something called Zoom bombing came about just because of the sort of security mechanism. But they fixed that really quickly. From my experience, it's probably similar to yours. I think it changed people's focus, the lockdowns and the pandemic. So it was like, it doesn't matter which one it is. We just need to be able to do something. So I didn't experience the politics there, but they must, as you say, there probably were lots of examples of where it did.
It was a really interesting time, and we were first bringing out laptops like there were no tomorrow. Academics grabbing them out of the sky, that kind of thing. No, that didn't happen. We handed them over nicely.
I know.
But there was a lot of that capability would not have been possible 10 years earlier. Just would not have. If we'd had a pandemic at the beginning of 2010, it would have been a completely different ballgame. So I think there's a lot that we can say about SaaS. And then the kind of last bit, I think, which is more about what technology can do and what we're trying to do and all the rest of it. And it comes back to those three things that I said were really magical: the unlimited connectivity, the unlimited compute power, the unlimited data. Is that allows you, if you get that right, that allows you to really digitize your organization. And I'm using my words carefully. I'm talking about how your organization operates, not how you deliver your services necessarily to your beneficiaries or your customers. I've seen so many organizations where they've got poor data handling across those different systems. They're not digitized. If you've got a warm body, or what I call wetware, in between one system and another system, then you are not digitized. And there's a lot that we could do to actually help people to get rid of those things that get in the way of processes. And I can see many organizations that are really doing that and doing that well. So they're optimizing their processes. They're getting rid of rework, reconciliation, manual handovers, and duplication. And that's great. Those are the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, by the way. I had to get that in because I'm waiting for that.
Cool. Okay. Brilliant, Laura. Thank you. Really, really sort of insightful stuff in there, and the stuff around the pandemic and how the university was is pretty intriguing. And as you say, like you said, you started work in the 80s. Things have changed a lot, very
Yes.
quickly in a very short space of time. I think is where I go. And I guess if you spoke to someone who finished working in the 80s, if they're still with us, I imagine the whole work environment is completely different to what it would have been back then. But
Yeah.
cool.
I found
Cool.
a little while ago actually of a desk, and I don't know why we had it, but it was a desk in the MOD in
Yeah.
1986, which is when I started working, and I worked in what was called DIGITS, the Director General Information Technology Services, which I don't think exists anymore. There wasn't a computer on the desk.
No.
It was literally just a desk and an in tray, and that
Right.
was in the a big wodge of music rule lined paper. For anyone who can remember that. So yeah, things have changed.
Did it have a telephone? Did it have a telephone?
It did have a telephone.
Yeah.
It did have a telephone.
they've probably been on desks for a lot longer than laptops and PCs, I suspect. Well, no, don't suspect. I know they have. Brilliant. All right, cool. So I guess then this probably tails in nice to the next question. Organizations in various different guises and various different ways have gone through, let's call it a transformation. They've changed how they deliver things. They change perhaps how they do what they do. Right, their principles might stay the same, but how they go about it may have changed quite sort of significantly. In your experience, what have been the biggest challenges organizations have faced when it comes to implementing new technology, and how did they overcome it?
I've got a big long list here. Sorry, Gethin.
That's okay.
Apologies.
That's all right.
I'm going to start with something that we all know is a bit of a truism, and many CIOs have said it, but unfortunately it's still landing on deaf ears. And that's the first one of those: is there's no such thing as a technology project.
Yeah.
There is only tech-enabled change, and the key word in there is change. Not tech. So that's kind of let's get that out of the way. It's a thing. It's a problem. It always has been a problem, and I'll come back to it as we go through. I think the next thing that is a major issue for implementing technologies is people. I mean, I could just stop there. It's kind of and it's all sorts of things, all sorts of aspects of people. And this podcast is called, putting the people back into technology, and it is very much human back, very much about people. I'll start with the people who implement technology. So those are your techies. Yeah. And I think, and certainly in the charity section, and I'm going to be a little bit mean, and hopefully people won't jump on my head about it. But we have a distinct lack of discipline and professional approach to how we deliver technology within charity sector, or any sector. Actually, I shouldn't just pick on the charity sector; it's across the board. And maybe this will resonate for people, but you've got a system, you've had it for 20 years, it's been developed from the ground up, it's now a monster, and you can't get rid of it. And half of the tools are missing that should be there. You can't delete records, you can't change admin rights on it, you can't do this, you can't do that. And the world is awash with those kinds of systems.
Yeah.
And that comes from that lack of discipline or professional approach and understanding what you're delivering, which is a service, not a system. And so that, I think, is kind of at the heart of that. The techie thing is we need to understand that we're delivering a full service. That means the admin tools are there, so you don't have to rely on a techie to do the basic stuff like delete records. So your admin tools are there, that it's an end-to-end service, that you understand the data standards going in and going out, and it's built to be supported. So design for support, design for service, design for security. Don't just leave it. Don't deprioritize all those things. So that's kind of one of the biggest issues that we have. And kind of linked to that is almost an inability to decide which is the best way of delivering a solution. So sometimes it's going to be you want to code it from the ground up, and other times it's going to be you want to buy it. And quite often you see bias one way or the other, and actually that's not right. You need to be able to choose and choose well.
On that note, do you think there's been a shift? Because I think they're probably interconnected. You talk about the big monolithic systems and applications, and they're no longer fit for purpose, but there's a massive dependency on the organization on them, and they can't work without them. And you see that all the time in lots of big businesses. Only takes, for example, an airline ticketing system. A contract will get blamed for turning something off that breaks it, and then all the planes are staying out of the sky until it's resolved, right? That happened reasonably recently. And then you mentioned sort of like I feel like how things have changed over time. When I started my career, I think there was probably a lot more in-house, customizable, monolithic type systems like you're talking about, compared to today, with possibly a lot more off the shelf. It feels like, in my experience, there's a lot more off the shelf type products people are buying, where it's a little bit more generic and perhaps not quite as customized for that. And do you think, have you seen that pattern yourself? I guess
yes, I have. I've seen resistance to it, and I've seen resistance to it in two ways. One is it's turkeys wishing for Christmas. So if you have a big in-house development team as your technical function, then there's going to be resistance to that move. The other one is the resistance, and this is one of the things I've got on my list, is the resistance to analysis of processes. So, and the willingness to compromise. So you said, it's slightly less bespoke, or, that's slightly less customized. One of the challenges I would throw at all organizations is what you do, and particularly in charity sector, what you do is amazing. It's fantastic and potentially unique. The how you do it is not. And therefore, when you're looking at your technology, you should be looking to be as standardized as you can possibly make it. Because the what you do is not the how you do the what you do is not unique. If you are fundraising, that means you're taking money from people and you're putting it in a bank account and you're monitoring it and you're reporting on it. It's the same for everybody. If you're delivering aid overseas, it's a logistics business. So understand the logistics and use the tools that are available to you. You are managing stock, you're managing fulfillment, and you're monitoring the fulfillment once it's being delivered. These are not unusual processes. No. So yes, I have seen that, but I've seen resistance to it.
And I think the resistance is fair. If you've got a large in-house development team, they're not going to be massively keen on buying something off the shelf. And I guess you can go down those off-the-shelf systems. People then try to customize within an inch of their life, and they then suffer from the same thing because you can't migrate because of all the changes you've made.
Well-known systems in the charity sector, the brand names which I will not name, have been around for a very, very long time and have been customized so much, it's very difficult for the organizations to move, with an added risk that if the manufacturer of that system decides to sunset it, they're in real trouble.
Okay. So, like, I get you. I don't want to put words in your mouth here. I feel like you're an advocate for the sort of, go off the shelf where you can, which is probably how a lot of organizations approach their technology. Yeah.
Not right. It's the right solution for the right thing. So, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to use my hands, but normally I'd draw a diagram for you. But there's a pyramid, and if you put what the charity does in a pyramid, starting with HR and finance and all those kind of common services, and then moving up to what the unique pinnacle of the charity is, then anything that's kind of below a line, you can draw a line on it. Anything that's below a line, then you should be looking off the shelf.
Generic.
Anything above the line, then you might decide that actually that's where you want to focus your coding efforts and your development efforts, because that might be more different. So no, I'm not an advocate for one or the other. I'm an advocate for the right one at the right time.
Right tool for the job. Cool. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. All right. So that's, I guess, the challenge is taken care of to a degree.
I have one more.
Oh, go
I
on.
had one. The last one was accepting poor returns on investment. So we're not learning. Very few technology-led change programs deliver the benefits that were expected or stated. So we're over-egging the benefits to start with. And then when it's delivered, it's kind of like, phew, project's done, woohoo, away we go. And nothing, no recognition of what the benefits were, no analysis of whether they've been received. So we're not learning what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
We just do the project, we finish it, the project manager goes, the sponsor goes, no one's interested, and we stop too quick.
It's over the shelf. It's over the fence, I should say, not over the shelf.
Yeah.
Over the fence and into BAU. I think that's that feels prevalent in a lot of different organisations and different sectors. I don't think that's just necessarily not for profit, because one of the things you keep seeing on, or I see a lot of sort of social media posts and stuff on LinkedIn around the sort of data and analytics space. Is it, ultimately, and I say I've got a conference talk where I talk about building a data-driven culture. And one of the things I say in there, nobody wants a data-driven culture. Nobody wants a drill. They want a quarter-inch hole, right? Nobody wants a data culture. They want the benefits it should be bringing and delivering for the business. And you need to be able to measure and monitor that and check your progress against it. So when the project goes over the fence, someone should be going, okay, well, we spent, and I've got lots of examples of this, but we've literally spent millions on this data platform. What's it given us? And no one can tell you.
I mean, part of your question, by the way, was what have we done to overcome it?
Overcome.
Yeah. And I had a whole lot of other things which I won't go into, but I'm going to be really honest with you and say I'm not sure we fully did overcome them.
Right.
But we moved the dial. And the reason that I'm saying that is because the vast majority of what I'm talking about are the reasons why technology is a challenge and why tech-enabled change doesn't always deliver is because it's culture. And that's where you have to focus your energies on getting the culture right. If you don't accept it and you don't accept that it's not a one and done solution to all of these, then it's just going to continue forever. And I think that the things that I've done and that I would continue to do is one, network like mad within your organizations. Right. So you, as the chief information officer, you should be everyone's friend. Get out there, be a critical friend if you need to be, but get out there. Lots of cups of coffee, lots of talking, lots of chatting to people, understand their issues, listening. What are the things they need to do? So network. The other thing that I think is really important is networking again, and that is no person is an island.
No.
So make sure you've got a good, strong external network. And there are plenty of really good networks out there. I would, of course, advocate for charity IT leaders if you're in the not-for-profit space. But again, it's really important that you do, because I see far too many leaders in tech who are isolated and therefore are struggling on alone, and they're not necessarily embracing the changes that are coming along, and they're struggling with those. So network as well. And somebody's actually put organizational transformation, not digital tech transformation. And that is bang on. Whoever said that, well done. Give that person a prize.
Let me see if I can find out. Let me see. New notification. I can't have it on. It's Tree again. I can't have it on. I can't have the live stream on and see the comments coming through on LinkedIn, so it just comes through as LinkedIn user here. And I think that the organizational transformation it does. If you try and do tech without changing the sort of organizational culture, you're probably doomed to fail. Interesting.
Sorry. Well, you're right,
I'm just going to cough. Yeah.
The other thing that I would also advocate is a bit of formality within your organization. And that isn't being stuffy, but get some basics in place that are formal. And one of those is decision rights. So know how you're going to make decisions about tech-enabled change. Who's going to make the decision? When are you happy to let a devolved technology team make a decision? And when are you not happy? And make sure that that's clearly articulated. I think without that, it becomes very much a kind of like devolved IT is a bad thing and we don't like it. we'll put the guardrails around, help people to deal with it, and then that will help. It helps with that culture. It helps with all of those other things.
Cool. That's some great advice there. Thanks for sharing that, Laura. Yeah, and I guess overcome. You've touched on it a little bit. You said you don't always feel like you've got there, but you've definitely shifted the dial, which I think is true for a lot of organisations. So I guess we've looked back, we've looked at some of the challenges you've encountered. How do you see sort of data and technology shaping the future of the not-for-profit sector? Clearly, you think it's going to, because you set up a company where you're going to help them do it. So I'm guessing it's going to have an impact. But it'd be interesting to see your thoughts on how you see it going, sort of down the line.
Yeah. I wrote, first of all, lots of ways. But again, go back to those three things that I said were magical, that we're not really exploiting, that we really need to exploit: the unlimited connectivity, unlimited compute power, and unlimited data. And I think those three, if we really could get to grips with that and lift our capabilities away from worrying about tin to worrying about how data flows around our organizations. And I think there's an awful lot of opportunities there for charities. A good example is, and I talked about this earlier, about the delivery of aid, be that emergency aid or continuous aid. And that's very much a logistics issue, and technology is at the forefront of that. And I think where we've seen really good examples of technology helping is that end-to-end flow of stock to fulfillment, in terms of aid, and then the kind of management of information and the mapping of data. I know that organizations make an awful lot of use of various technologies for mapping. So when you're talking about logistics, how do I get something from A to B? What's the route I need to take it? So that I think is really important, and I think charities can nick sort of various ideas from some of the big commercial organizations that have really changed the logistics sector in the last 10 years. So I'm thinking about Amazon, Every, all of those organizations that are delivering logistics, and the systems behind them. They are all built for efficiency. Some would say slightly too far. They've got slightly too kind of Rottweiler-ish on their deliveries. But there's ideas that we can nick from them, and I think we should. Another area is data monitoring and evaluation, and I think we as charity sector have to embrace that more and more information about how we do what we do and the benefit that we deliver, so more reporting, more transparency, is key. And much as though I don't like it, and I don't, there are many organizations out there that evaluate the efficiency of charities, so that philanthropists can make the best choices of who they donate to. I think that's a very slippery slope, but they're doing it. We can't ignore it. And we need to be on top of showing what we do is efficient. The reason I think it's a slightly slippery slope is because if you are choosing, if we continue with this narrative that charity donations is no longer a gift, then it becomes a donation for influence, and I'm not sure that's a direction we really want to go in. So I have a caveat there, but I think the fact that we need to be more transparent, and good data management allows us to do that, I think that's right at the forefront. Okay. And then I think the last one, and we talked about this when we chatted about this podcast, is we need to be on top of our game with misinformation and disinformation, and I think we can. We missed the boat on Twitter, never X, and it's a particular problem for the social care charities. So those charities who are tackling poverty in the UK or the poverty in the US or wherever it happens to be, there's a narrative about the beneficiaries that's been toxic for years, and we need to be coming back out stronger with our advocacy, our reporting, our studies, and our facts. And without that, we have a vacuum. So I think there is a real opportunity now to use technology to gather that data, to give irrefutable fact, so that we can start to counter misinformation, disinformation. I don't think we will succeed quickly, but if there's nothing, then that's not great. So I think there's more that we could do there in that space.
Yeah, I guess I don't have the answer to the misinformation problem that the world seems to be suffering with greatly at the moment. I think I've kind of read. I think it probably comes down to narrative. If it's my personal opinion on this, so I'm not no words in your mouth, but this is kind of my take. So I've been doing a little bit of reading on that, or well, reasonably recently, and strange enough, it was all to do with a TEDx talk I was hoping to deliver. And if you look at like the good TEDx talks, they talk about the sort of the elements of persuasion and all that kind of, the stuff that moves people. And facts is not really, it is in there, but it's not the main mover. It's the emotion. And what you find with a lot of the misinformation stuff, people play on the emotion and then they believe it to be fact. So we have, if you actually want, you have to put the facts into a narrative that's emotionally attached to the people you want to influence. So perhaps that is the answer, but that's a very hard thing to do. I'm certain, but it's just.
Yeah, it's bang on. You're absolutely spot on, Gethin. It's absolutely what we need to be doing. I mean, I lost my train of thought there, but
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's fine. I think the fact that it's storytelling. And I remembered what it was. But there's a podcast by a guy called Brian Klaas. Sorry to advertise somebody else, but it's nothing to do with tech. He does a podcast called Corruptible.
Right.
One of them was about trolls, and he interviewed the top troll in the US, who is set up as a business. That's what he does. And what he said was, there's two things that you can get, that you need in order to get someone to reshare a untrue post. One, it confirms something they already believe, or two, enrages them. So that's back on your point, that enragement point, about the emotion, and that's the world we live in. So we have to counter that with that emotional storytelling, as well. But facts have to be the back of it.
Clearly, it's just how people get influenced. It's a lot of the emotion that's in there.
Yeah.
And the facts are somewhat secondary. They've made that connection with that person, so they're then. But I won't name names, but you can see the stuff that's going on certain social media sites right now, and it's having a massive influence over over people. Whether that's right or wrong, I'll let the viewers decide.
Yeah. Let's go back to tech. It's nice to say.
Let's go back. Yeah, let's go back there. Right. Well, it's been a very fun 40 minutes. I've got one more question for you, Laura. It's a bit of a fun question. We like to close the show with a bit of a fun question, and I usually give my guests a choice of the 4 questions, and I think you want to be asked, what's the best piece of career advice you've ever been given? I love these types of questions, so I'm looking forward to your answer.
So the best piece of advice I was given, at that time I was a director of technology, was be careful you don't become the director of the little things.
Yeah.
And and that stayed with me, and the person who said it is a very close friend still, which is great. They worked for me at the time, so it was very brave of them to do it. But it was a really important message, because that you picture the scene. You're in a big all-staff meeting. The chief exec is up in front of the stage. There's a projector on a table. They're presenting something, and the projector doesn't work. And everyone in the room looks at you because you're in tech. And the one thing you shouldn't do is jump up and try and fix it.
Yeah.
Because that's just reinforcing in everybody's head that you're in tech and you just do the stuff that makes a noise when you drop it. And we're not doing that. So there's that, and there was also the thing about always taking someone else's complaint and then carrying it back to your team to get it dealt with, when actually what you want to do is surface your team to that person and go. They go, oh, I haven't had this from the service desk. Oh, have you spoken to insert name of person? Is the correct response. Not, I'll take that back and go and deal with it for you, because that you are the director of the little things, and you really need to not do that. You're there, and you're being paid the big bucks to go and talk about, get the strategy sorted and fix all these legacy systems that are scattered liberally through your organization.
Fix the big problems and let the little ones. Well, not even little problems. There's a big problem for somebody, isn't it? But it's like it's not probably the best use of your time, and it's not the best use of your team's time.
team. It's really bad for your team. What you're doing is undermining them at every turn, so don't do it. Brilliant piece of advice. I'm very grateful to that person.
Cool. Cool. Excellent piece of advice there for all aspiring leaders who want to make it to CIO and the C-suite. So brilliant. Thank you for sharing that, Laura. That's awesome. Now, I think that brings us to the end of the show. So all that leaves me to do, Laura, is to thank you so much for coming on. Some of the stuff you shared there has been really insightful. Lots of experience in lots of different organisations, and I'm sure Leaderly is going to be a very very successful. I'm sure it is very successful for you already. And thank you very much for coming on, and thank you for sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you very much, Gethin. It was a pleasure.
All right, guys. Till next time, we'll see you later. Bye for now.
Bye.